is kind of, I don't want to sound like
All
I'm
right, so
saying
you
this in a
say a
pejorative
mountain of
way,
evidence.
but a
Can you
little bit
give me
delusional.
five? You should be able to give me five at least. Oh, no, I want 10. Since you say it's a mountain, give us 10 of your best globe arguments that you feel cannot be debunked.
Sure, sunsets, sunrises, eclipses. I would say, well, lunar and solar
Wouldn't
eclipses.
we
So I
not
think
just
that's,
classify the sunset and the sunrise pretty much as like the same phenomenon? Pretty
yeah,
much.
we can do that. So
So that's just
sun,
one then. So that's
sure,
one.
yeah, sure. We can go sun. We can go lunar eclipses. We can go solar eclipses. We can go seasons. We can go the length of day. We can go 24-hour days. I don't know if you want to
Let's
include that
just choose
24
one. Let's
hour.
just choose one.
Yeah, we can do sunsets because that's what
Let's
I'm
do.
here for. So
Right, right. I think he is. I'm sorry to the globe earther here. That fucking guy is stupid. For a flat earther, mate, you need to fucking do your research.
Chinny, I'm gonna give you just like the rest of your time to say what you want to say right now, and then we gotta rotate Mike. So say whatever you gotta say, and then we gotta bring some other people up. Go ahead, Chinny.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'll literally get a couple of minutes to speak. So literally, for what I go for observation, and I look around and I see up, I see down, and I see a beautiful, beautiful fucking sunrise. It's a beautiful moonrise, and it literally the fuck it is phenomenal. When
yeah,
you get up early in the morning and you see the moonrise and the sunrise, you think I'm not really convinced what the fuck it is, but I believe there is something higher than us, and that is created, and I think we should almost worship it. But it is literally the sun and the moon. We should fucking all sit down and say Jesus, but Jesus even. What do you reckon, son? The sun and the moon. Anyway, sun,
no, I
beautiful
agree with you.
object.
I actually agree
Moon,
with you.
beautiful object. So how can we say it's phallic? How can we say it's like flat, round? All we've got to do is agree it's beautiful. For
I
one,
agree.
but come on, I don't even think the flats and the rounds know what the fuck it is. I still don't think we do. But
All right, hey, can I say something here? You kind of just rambling a little
yeah,
bit.
I'm finished now. Cheers, Sacred,
Yeah.
for my 2 pences. Let the room speak. Thank you,
Okay,
Sacred.
great. You're gonna go
Go on.
mute. You're gonna mute now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chinny.
No, I'm gonna mute.
Chinny,
I'm not gonna butt in.
Chinny, request back up if you want to speak.
I will back up. How the fuck do I back up? Don't know.
That button right there.
Yeah, I was gonna try to talk to the guy that's got the modeling experience with about the planes, about airplanes. If that's all right. You still here, model guy? What's your name? I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm
sure your
here.
name.
Yeah, yeah. It's Cole.
Paul. Okay. Yeah. So there's a problem with airplanes, and I haven't had a good answer from a baller on this one. So maybe you could provide an answer.
Sure. What's your question?
Okay, so on a globe model, you understand that there's an equator with 1,000 miles supposed to eastward tangential velocity, right?
Yes.
Right. And then it tapers up, kind of like a racetrack, and it has different latitudes with different speeds that the ball would be spinning, the 500 and 400, 300, and then they say zero at the poles, right?
Yeah. Are you going to ask why Coriolis doesn't seem to have an effect on planes?
No, let me just get to it slowly here. It's not. It's just a problem with, in particular, I'll talk about the landings. Now, if
Okay.
a plane starts with like a 500 mile per hour conserved momentum, right? And that's where it
Mm-hmm.
takes off from. Now it's headed towards the equator, right? And it's going to need 1,000 miles an hour eastward tangential velocity to be in perfect sync with the Earth, so that the pilot can treat the Earth as stationary, which they're taught to. And when it lands, it needs to treat the runway as completely stationary. So that means
Yeah.
that it would have to be moving eastward tangentially in perfect sync with the Earth, right? Do you agree with
Mm-hmm.
that? Like it would have to be moving sideways
Yeah.
eastward, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how is it that it picks up the 500 miles per hour difference by the time it gets to the equator?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. I actually have flown an aircraft before. I
Mhm.
flew a Cessna 172. Didn't fly it that far that I had to really care about Coriolis, but my answer to that would be, well, first of all, you would agree that airplanes from the side, at least, aren't very aerodynamic, right? So, like, if winds were pushing up the sides, that would maybe adjust the, I don't know what you would say, like the sideways movement of the plane, right? So, like, if it were traveling down towards the equator, my explanation would be that the winds, because the winds do follow the rotation of the Earth, the winds pick up the speed from the side. Um, that's my straight up off the cuff answer. If you want, I can do a little bit more research into it and give you a better answer. I'd be down to do that.
Well, there has to be a good
Um,
answer, right? There has to be one answer, right? Because the
yeah, yeah,
planes land and fly all the time. You've done it yourself, right? So
yeah.
when you were flying, did you worry about the curvature or the
So
spin of
I
the
just
Earth
flew
at
around a
all?
local area. I just flew around a local area, so curvature wasn't really anything that would have affected me. I'm
Mhm.
just gonna look something up really quick. Like, what is the distance from like the 45-degree parallel to the equator? That's got to be like 10,000 kilometers, I think. So if you think about it, you have to pick up 500 miles an hour over 10,000 kilometers. So you've got
Yeah.
you've got quite a bit of space to do it, right? And that entire time, the wind's going to be speeding you up from the side. So that's my right up off the cuff answer. Again, I can look into it more if you'd
Well,
like,
I'll tell you the
but
problem with that answer because I've gone over
yeah,
this argument many times with many different Glovers,
for sure.
and in fact, last night with astrophysicist as well as or the guy that works at CERN and then an astrophysicist. Anyway, so and they don't have good answers. They don't have any answer for this. They will say that the incremental argument is what they'll say over time just needs to incrementally pick up that 500 miles per hour. The problem
Hmm.
is that the pilots aren't taught to do that, right? So how would it be
Hmm.
that the pilots aren't taught to pick up that extra 500 miles per hour? And there's still a problem even if they are taught, right? Because
Right.
they would have to then deviate eastward and go sideways an extra 500 miles an hour to be in perfect sync with the Earth. And do you think that they would put a pilot in the air and tell him to just treat the Earth as stationary and then have those kind of factors to deal with once he gets in the air?
So hold on. Would we agree that the the wind, or not the wind, I'd say, but the atmosphere in general sort of follows the rotation of the Earth? So like,
Well,
if
yeah,
because that's how
this is
storms
another
work,
argument.
right?
Well, yeah, there's a problem with that too because you have to separate the atmosphere from the winds, right? So the atmosphere pushing the plane is a wind, and we know winds go in all directions. So how are you separating those two?
I would say it's an average over time. Like, you know how, for example, like there's low pressure and high pressure weather systems, right? And the
Sure.
reason that high pressure goes, what is it? Is it counterclockwise? And high pressure goes clockwise. Did I get that
Mhm.
backwards? It's one of the two,
Either way,
but it's
but yeah,
because, yeah, yeah, it's because of that tangential velocity. With things moving north and things moving south. So there is definitely that force there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have pressure systems going clockwise and counterclockwise. Um, so
yeah, and it works the same on a
I,
flat Earth, by the way, as far as that all that goes. It would just be over a stationary Earth, right?
I, I, let's not get into that. I don't agree necessarily, but I know I have to pass the mic on soon.
Wait, hold on, wait.
Um,
No, real quick, though, we need to go through this because this is an interesting point that you haven't thought of. You haven't thought this through yet, and it
oh
does
no, I
debunk
have.
your glove. Well, no. I mean the
I've been
plane
asked
argument.
about it.
The plane argument, right? Because if you're saying that just the winds going on an average a certain direction, right? Even if they go in all directions, you're saying the atmosphere in general goes on average in that direction. So the pilot's then putting his life in this average of wind, pushing him to be in perfect tangential velocity with the Earth. You see the problem there? Like the pilot's not going to go, oh, the wind's going to push me in sync with the Earth. No one's going to think that, and no one would ever want to risk that.
Again, it's 500 miles per hour max over 10,000 kilometers. I think the average would kind of take control at that point.
Kinda.
Uh,
It can't
we
be
can
kinda
agree to
though. We're talking
disagree.
about pilots like landing in a precision way. It has to work perfectly, or it doesn't work. And the only way it works perfectly is if the pilot's treating the Earth as stationary because it's stationary. It can't be
Sure. So
like, oh, an
let's.
average. I'm gonna be mostly caught up, or I'm gonna incrementally do this without even being trained to do that. Somehow the wind's gonna do it for me. Somehow,
Yeah,
like, what is that? The autopilot, you're going to go with that. Maybe someone says that, but that doesn't make any difference when that autopilot, is modern. So how do pilots treat the Earth as stationary and level? All the flight simulators, like you would make with Blender, would have a stationary level Earth for the plane to land and fly over. So how is it
yeah.
that there's no dynamical difference
No, I get what you're
between
saying.
flying over
So
a stationary Earth? I mean, I've had people in here say there'd be no difference in training a pilot to fly over a stationary level Earth or training a pilot to fly over a spinning ball Earth. From working with models, there'd be a big difference in the dynamics.
well, I can move on to flight paths because, for
No, no,
example,
no.
on
We
a
don't need to
flat
move on to
Earth,
that.
you
We
couldn't
need
do
to
a 90-degree turn 2 times and then back where you
wait.
started.
Hold on.
That
Wait.
doesn't work on a flat Earth.
But wait. Don't obfuscate. We're talking about how are pilots treating the Earth as stationary if it's actually moving. That doesn't work from modeling. It wouldn't work.
So yeah, I'm just gonna have to give you the answer that I gave before. I'm not saying there aren't gusts left and right. I'm saying though that the average speed of the atmosphere is going to be moving with the Earth, and over 10,000 kilometers, that's going to take effect. If you don't agree with
Yeah,
that,
but
I
no. It's not
completely
about
respect
agreeing with
that.
that. I'm just saying that if I'm surprised because you seem like a smart guy. I'm surprised that you think that works. That you think that's a good answer. You think that's even
I,
like a feasible answer. I mean, it'd
I,
have
I
to be like in
do.
perfect sync so that the pilot could just treat the runway as if it's stationary. That means that this average wind that he's relying on somehow is going to tangentially make him in perfect sync with the Earth. Do you think that even makes sense?
No, there's going to be gusts left and right. There's going to be crosswinds, of
Yeah,
course.
all kinds of variables, right? So you wouldn't just put the pilot up in the air and be like, well, that wind's going to probably make you in perfect sync with the Earth, so you can just treat that runway like it's stationary. Don't worry, it'll move you sideways, even though a plane's not even made to accelerate sideways. Not only that, no, this is the kicker, bro. Even if the wind were to push him, or he were to be trained to correct for that, and move the plane sideways by yawing or whatever it is that he needs to get the plane moving sideways tangentially to be an extra 500 miles per hour in perfect tangential velocity with the Earth. Even if that were the case, he would have to continue accelerating sideways as he's slowing down to land on a north-facing runway headed south. How is he going to continue to accelerate with the Earth that extra amount while he's slowing down to land in a perpendicular direction?
Are you talking about like in a local area, or are you talking about like going over like 10,000 kilometers at this point? Because you're talking about
No, we're
landing
talking
now. That's
about a 500 mile per hour latitude he takes off from. He needs an extra 500 when he gets to the city that he's landing in on the equator, right? So he's got to make up that difference somehow, which he's not taught to do. And even if he was, the plane would somehow have to be continuing to accelerate 500 miles per hour extra amount than the conserve momentum, even if we let you beg the question that he has conserved momentum just by being on the Earth. He's moving with the Earth automatically. That's why we allow you to say, oh, well, a balloon, a hot air balloon goes up in the air and the Earth is spinning under it because it was on the Earth, so it has that conserved momentum, so it's moving with the Earth automatically. So even if we let you beg the question and do that with the plane, when it gets to the equator, it has to accelerate an extra 500 miles per hour eastward tangentially with the Earth, right? And then
sure.
if that
So
is the case, it would have to continue accelerating that extra amount and then slow down to land in another direction and going faster sideways, going 500 miles per hour sideways, but then down to zero in the forward
yeah.
direction.
So
Doesn't
let me
work.
ask you this: if if we have to make up a 500 miles per hour difference over 10,000 kilometers, how many miles per hour? I don't like how we're mixing up units here, by the way. How many miles per hour would you have to shift over, let's say, a
There's a
thousand
formula.
kilometers?
It's like, you can put it down. You can make it
Yeah,
like
no. So I can
seem
give you the
minimal.
answer. It's every
Yeah,
100 kilometers, you would have to change your speed 5 miles an hour to make up that distance. And I would argue that over 100 kilometers, the wind could probably speed you up 5 miles an hour.
but there has to be an answer to this, right? It can't just be you think that the wind would do it. That's ridiculous, even if it is the case, because you're not going to say, I would say an average of the wind is going to save my life when I'm trying to land this plane. No, it would be one answer because the planes fly over what they assume is a stationary level Earth and land on a stationary level Earth as far as they know all the time. They would
That's
be
not
trained to
completely
know.
true.
Well,
No,
they would be trained to make up that
there's
difference, right? They would be trained to know, well, if the
so
wind didn't push you enough, you got to make up that extra amount that the average wind didn't push you enough. And then not only that, but it would have to continue accelerating sideways as it's slowing down to land on a north-facing runway headed south. There's no denying that. That's just basic physics, basic common sense.
All right, so one of the things you said, I just got to really quickly correct. You said that like flight planning software, or you said something about the flight dynamics takes into account a flat Earth. That's not true. Things like ForeFlight, which are flight planning softwares, use a spherical Earth. But again, I'm going to have to give you the exact same answer I think I've given 5 times now, which is over 100 kilometers, you would have to change your tangential velocity 5 miles an hour, which I think would be A, unnoticeable, B, I'm pretty sure the wind would take care of that on average, because even if there are gusts left and right, a 5 mile per hour difference over 100 kilometers isn't that difficult to make up. But
yeah, but you see how you're minimizing
listen.
You're
We can
trying
keep
to make it
talking about
sound
this
like
later.
less than a 500 mile per hour difference, right? You're
Okay,
trying to make it
we're
sound
gonna
less by
keep.
saying incremental, but the pilot would be aware of that. They'd make the
Okay,
pilots like over
listen.
aware. They would be aware. They'd be overtrained, not undertrained, and they would never depend on a wind to make their lives safe when they're landing. And the wind would have to continue to push the plane sideways as it's slowing to land, so it breaks your model, bro. Not only that, on top of this is the real kicker. What if he's going west-southwest, right? He said only west-southwest all the way to the equator. Now he's not. There's no way to deviate east at all because it's only west-southwest. He's going all the way to the equator, but he needs eastward tangential velocity, extra 500 miles per hour eastward tangential velocity. Now, just by going west, he's going to lose his original conserved momentum. One of the top ballers, Yannick, admit to that and say, yeah, well, he's going to lose his eastward tangential velocity just by going west. But then somehow the atmosphere is going to push him backwards faster than he's going forwards to be 1,000 miles an hour eastward directly with the Earth as he's trying to land. That's what would have to happen, literally. Model it out, bro. Model it.
No, so it's relative. It's not like you're not starting from a completely 100% stationary reference point. You're rotating with the Earth, so it's reference.
Right, that's your
it's 500.
A relation.
But listen, if you want to like add me on Discord, we can talk about this. I feel kind of like an asshole taking up so much mic time.
Well, you sound like you're trying to get out of the conversation because you don't have an answer.
Yeah, I got questions for you too.
No, don't worry. I'm first. Sorry, Ben.
We've been talking
I'm
in
going to
circles.
be real quick.
I feel like for 10
You
minutes.
don't have an answer for this. And if you model it out, you'll realize it's impossible and your globe will break.
What did I answer to you? Let me ask you that.
You said
what did I say?
I'm pretty sure the winds would do it for him. That's what you said, right?
And how many miles an hour over 100 kilometers?
Well, it would have to be a precise wind for that kind of exact measurement to be that the wind's pushing the plane perfectly. Do you think that even would be something that they could depend on or even predict?
I heard someone say 5, and they're right. So
regardless of if you make it minimal in your mind, it would have to be something that actually happens. You need a mechanism. The wind's blow in all directions. You can't say because the average is one direction, where the pilot's going to put his life in this average one direction, even though there could be like a day where there's like a really heavy westerly wind, and it's going to mess all that up. Do you think the pilots are going to put their hands in their lives in the hands of this wind on average because we think it's going to be minimal over a long distance? That would be ridiculous. No pilot. There's no pilot that would ever fly if they were told that's the case. They're just told to treat the Earth as stationary and level, and that's how they do it.
We're talking in circles at this point. I'm going to say the same thing. 5 miles an hour over 100 kilometers is going to be such a subtle difference that I'm pretty sure it's negligible over the distance you're flying, and the speed of the atmosphere would take care of it.
But wait a minute, you already admitted he would need an extra 500 miles per hour eastward tangential velocity. How can you make that minimal and negligible?
Because they're going over, what did we agree to, 10,000 kilometers?
Doesn't matter. I mean, it adds up, bro. And to think that just because you can say, oh, just a little bit over time, then just don't worry about it because it's so little when I think about it as just a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more and then a little bit more. That adds up to 500 miles per hour eastward tangential velocity. You can't just think of it as 5 and then say, oh, it's 5, so it doesn't even matter. They'll probably be okay because the winds probably pushed them into the perfect tangential velocity to be in sync with the Earth. Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?
All right, so I think this is the 7th time I've said the same answer. And if you think
you don't even know that's the answer. You're just saying you're pretty sure. So why are you going to say the same answer again? Because it's not the answer. There is no answer,
So
bro.
I can stay here for as long as you want. If you want to accuse me of running, I can stay here and just keep answering this
I'm not
question
trying to
for you.
accuse you of running, but why are you just like so confident with this answer that you say you're pretty sure about, and it's not even an answer?
No, it is an answer. Again, it's 5 miles an
What, the
hour
winds?
over 100 kilometers.
Okay.
So every 100 kilometers, it's a 5 mile per hour difference in tangential
And
velocity.
it would have to be precise, right? Because it'd have to be in perfect sync so that he could treat the Earth as stationary, right? So how are you going to depend on these winds making it a precision 5 miles
I
per hour
don't
over
think it
100
needs to be
kilometers?
precise. I don't think it needs
Well,
to
it
be
wouldn't have
precise.
to be, because if he's a little
You can
faster or a little
vary. Like you
slower,
can bank
the
left
wheels
or
will
you can
break
bank
off.
right to change for it.
No, wait a minute. The pilot would be trained. The pilot would be trained to deal with it if there's something to deal with, right? You would agree with that. They're not going to just
Well,
put him up there with a situation that might be a surprise to the pilot. He's got lives in his hands. He's got people on the plane. It's got to be exact. He can't be a little bit faster tangentially than the Earth or a little bit slower. It's got to be so precise that he just thinks it's stationary or
let me
assumes it is
ask
or
you.
treats it as what.
Let me
So
ask
the
you this:
wheels
how
would
long?
break off, right? Do you understand the concept that if he's going
How,
perpendicular and the Earth's moving underneath him sideways, that the wheels would break off and he would crash land when he tries to land? If it's just a little
all
bit
right.
different, it has to be so perfect that and he can just assume it's stationary and look at the runway. And you see many you yourself went on a plane. You see that the pilot, and you can look out the cockpit window and see that runway is just there, and he's just aiming at the runway. He's not worried about trying to keep the plane up eastward tangentially with that runway. There's no variation whatsoever. Do you know why? The only reason that could be the case is if it's actually stationary, bro. This is
All
a
right. Can I ask
basic
you a
fact, a
question?
basic common sense.
How fast do you think it takes, or how long do you think it takes an aircraft to accelerate from, say, 200 to 500 knots?
Does that matter?
Yes, because if you need to accelerate to 500 knots to meet the tangential velocity, we got to talk about how long it's going to take to accelerate to that rate. So I'm asking you, how long would it accelerate or take an aircraft to accelerate from, say, 200 knots to 500 knots or 500 miles an hour?
Whether if I guess that a number, does it really matter? The
It's
pilot would
about
be
20
trained to do
seconds.
that.
It's about
Okay, but
20
the pilot
seconds
would be trained to do that. Wouldn't you agree?
to accelerate.